Content in this podcast is not legal, financial, or investment advice.
We got excited. We got the rest of the senior leadership team at Playboy excited, and thought really hard about how to enter the space, like what would be authentic for Playboy, what would be respectful to the existing community and the existing world that people were building. And we landed on entering through the fine art lens. So Playboy has a really strong background in contemporary art in various capacities. We've featured everyone from, Keith Haring to Andy Warhol to Salvador Dali to Picasso in the magazine, and then huge history in cartoons, huge physical art collection, have always kind of prided ourselves on being a brand that champions artists, visual artists as well as musical artists on the stages of the Playboy Club, beautiful photography in the magazine that celebrates sexual expression. So thinking about how do we combine those themes from our DNA, right? Anti-censorship, freedom of speech, creative expression, art's legacy. So we sort of marinated on all those different elements and came up with this concept for an NFT art collection with an artist named slimesunday, who's one of the coolest digital artists in the space. If you haven't heard of him, you should definitely check him out.
All right, that was another super cool episode. I feel like I learn so much every time we have these guests on, and Liz is no exception. I mean, I've known her now for close to a year since we were on the panel, and proud owner of our Rabbitar. It's fun to be involved with the brand. What'd you think?
Yeah, Liz is incredible. I loved how she shared so many great tips and insights on what it means to get into this space, especially at the helm of such an iconic and global brand. So it seems so relatable to where I think a lot of people might be today, just trying to consider the space and how to extend brand equity into these new spaces and really kind of take that leap. So she's such a testament to how that could be successful. And a lot of other great insights. She was such an incredible guest. And I love that her dog Ferris made a few appearances. So
our first dog on the
I know.
Show.
Yeah.
Thank you, Liz.
Yeah, but many great insights in this, especially for those considering how to enter the space. So yeah, thanks, Liz, for sharing so many great insights.
Yeah, she brings, I mean, she's really seen it all, as much as you can say that, in a nascent space. So yeah, I think brands are going to really learn quite a bit. So let's get going.
Yeah.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Metaverse Matters by Pebble Ventures. Here, as always, with my partner, Lauren Fenema. And we are very excited to have Liz Suman here. She is the Vice President of Art, Editorial, and Web3 at Playboy. Liz and I got to know each other because we spoke on a panel at the Retail Innovation Conference about 8 months ago, and I'm a proud owner of a Rabbitar, which we'll talk about today. So Liz, thanks so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Thank you. Well, cool. Maybe we'll just jump right in, and you can tell our audience a little bit about your background and kind of how you got involved in Web3 and your role at Playboy. And one of the things I'm just going to open with is I think you're one of the few people in this space who've really, I would say, experienced it all. Even though we're a really new industry, I mean, you got involved very early, you had a very successful launch, and then you've been navigating through the ups and downs. And so really looking forward to talking about it today. I did want to kind of get that out at the start, that you've got a lot of experience in a very short period of time, which we're excited to talk about today.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a wild ride so far. And the journey to get here. So a little bit about my background. I've had a pretty interesting and unexpected journey at Playboy. I have a background in journalism and publishing and art curation. And I joined the company around 5 years ago on the pretty traditional editorial side. And that might sound like a long tenure at a company by today's standards, but to be honest, the company and my role within it have evolved so much that, sometimes it feels like I've had multiple jobs at different companies. So there's always, something that's kept me inspired, and that's been kind of an exciting part of being at Playboy. So I started on the editorial side, working for the magazine. I held a series of various roles, including arts editor, senior editor, and eventually the co-executive editor of the magazine. And then around the time that COVID started, we stopped publishing the print publication. And, what was in many ways, a sad moment for me, and I think for the company, as a legacy media company, had this kind of unexpected plot twist where that was around the same time that the Web3 NFT narrative was having a resurgence in the mainstream media, right? It's around the time of the $69 million Beeple sale, and when interest was peaked again. It certainly wasn't the beginning of NFTs, but was being brought up again in new ways in conversations. And my chief brand officer and I, Rachel Weber, we were really in the trenches kind of from the beginning, and really the only ones at the company who were just, even in our own personal time, just fascinated by what was happening. We had members of the team like dabbling in DeFi and collecting NFTs ourselves and just getting kind of personally invested in it. And she and I just saw this opportunity. We didn't know what it looked like yet, but we saw this really cool opportunity, as a brand that has, this is our 70th year. We have a massive archive. We started as storytellers, right? It's a company that's built on the backbone of a magazine, even though the brand has evolved so much since then. And so there was just this question floating out there between us that was, how do we as a legacy media company known by the tagline of entertainment for men, right, that has transformed into a brand that celebrates pleasure for all. Right. How do we combine the best elements of our past and our future to explore this new format, leverage our archives, use everything that is amazing about this brand to utilize this new technology and tell stories in new ways. So as the former editor of the magazine, that for me was particularly interesting, is like, in the absence of a print publication, how do we continue to drive culture? How do we use what we have as part of this brand to reach new audiences? And so what we did was we met with everyone we could. We did this sort of self-designed curriculum in Web3 and NFTs, really took the time to understand the ethos of the NFT art community, met with potential partners, just like exploratory call one after the other. And it was just this really exciting time in the space where everyone, and Mike, I think you're a continuing example of this, as someone who's just excited to talk to people and learn and hear what other people are doing and just keep up those relationships. And the energy of that was like very strong at that time. So we got excited. We got the rest of the senior leadership team at Playboy excited, and thought really hard about how to enter the space, like what would be authentic for Playboy, what would be respectful to the existing community and the existing world that people were building. And we landed on entering through the fine art lens. So Playboy has a really strong background in contemporary art in various capacities. We've featured everyone from, Keith Haring to Andy Warhol to Salvador Dali to Picasso in the magazine, and then huge history in cartoons, huge physical art collection, have always kind of prided ourselves on being a brand that champions artists, visual artists as well as musical artists on the stages of the Playboy Club, beautiful photography in the magazine that celebrates sexual expression. So thinking about how do we combine those themes from our DNA, right? Anti-censorship, freedom of speech, creative expression, arts legacy. So we sort of marinated on all those different elements and came up with this concept for an NFT art collection with an artist named slimesunday, who's one of the coolest digital artists in the space. If you haven't heard of him, you should definitely check him out. He does these amazing original digital collage. And we had actually featured him in the magazine in the past. So there was this sort of organic symmetry there. that felt authentic. So we came up with a collection of NFTs called Liquid Summer. That was in the spring of 2021, I think. So I curated a collection of archival imagery from the magazine. He took that and made his own creations. And we dropped it on Nifty Gateway in, I think, spring of 2021. And it was a hit. It sold out within 24 hours. It was successful from a revenue perspective. It was well received culturally. You know, we took the time to do a lot of storytelling behind it and be really respectful of not just dropping our IP on the internet without any kind of thought behind it. And it sort of exploded from there. That was the first big moment. And that led to a series of other NFT art collections, more on Nifty, a few on Super Rare. And that whole summer spent really kind of building up our receipts on the art front. And then that organically led to our first PFP project, which was almost exactly a year ago. It's called the Playboy Rabbitars. I assume everyone listening to this podcast is familiar with what a PFP project is, but for those who might not know, it's a collection of digital collectibles, in our case, inspired by Playboy's IP. So there are 11,953 rabbit characters, which we dropped over a 3-day sale, did extremely well, and has kind of led to ongoing community building with that collection, as well as this year really focusing on building in the metaverse in different ways, which I think we'll probably get into a little bit more later in the conversation.
We will. Lauren, go ahead. I know you're chopping at the bit.
I mean, that was such a great overview of how such an iconic global brand approached the space. So thank you for sharing, because I think that's part of demystifying what's exciting about the space, even though maybe the times have changed a little bit over the last 2 years, but still that thoughtfulness and the storytelling is really resonates with me. And I think is such an important part of bringing a brand into a new space in general. So that's really encouraging. I'm so curious to revisit how fans have received, especially the Rabbitar project, and maybe that's probably evolved over the last year as well. And I know in some of our prior conversations you've touched on that before, but how have fans received the project? What, when you launched them, could they do anything with them, or was it just the cachet of participating in this exciting new moment in the brand's legacy? Can you share a little bit more about that journey over the last 12 months or so?
So that's a great question. So I think one of the things that was an immediate benefit and kind of differentiator, both for us in and of Playboy, and then also possibly compared to some other brands, is a program that's called derivatives. So you know how Bored Apes have derivatives. A lot of projects have derivatives, right? Where you're opening up the IP, giving commercial access to the holders to do what they will with it, whether it's creating original art using that IP or apparel, physical goods, whatever it might be. So because we're a big brand and you have all these understandable limitations when it comes to doing something like that, we spent a ton of time and had people on the team who were really passionate about making that part of the project and being respectful of the community in that way, and again, being a big brand and having the support internally to do that, even though it took some extra work to do it in a way that we could do it, was really cool. And I think something that I almost always forget about, because it was such a big moment at the time, and it's an ongoing thing. Anybody who owns a Rabbitar can take the IP from the Rabbitar and do what they want with it. I think the only real exception is if your Rabbitar is wearing apparel that has a Playboy logo on it, you can't use that. But what we've done is provided 3D art files with all of that removed. So you have access, this prepackaged set of assets that if you own a Rabbitar, you can use, and we've removed the things that we're not allowed to.
That's very cool. Yeah. Kind of helping the fan actually utilize that is so important. So that's super cool.
Right.
And a huge step. I mean, I can't imagine some of the conversations that had to happen to even allow access to the IP, like you mentioned. And what a differentiator, to your point, especially at the level that Playboy brand is at. So super, super cool for the folks that actually got in on the project. And now that they're, the holders of these NFTs, has there been like a big community play or like special events, or like kind of how has that roadmap unfolded? And are you thinking about layering in like other collaborations? I mean, there's so many things I want to ask about, but maybe we start there, of the community aspect of that you've seen come out of this project.
Yeah.
If any.
From the beginning, we've had a subset of diehard Rabbitar fans. I mean, just to give a few examples, there's one sort of sub community called the Rabbitat, where members of the community have banded together, and they have their own Discord. They have regular Twitter spaces where they talk about the project. They hosted a Monarch Masquerade Halloween ball over Halloween to celebrate Halloween and the Rabbitars 1 year anniversary. And it was like a series of Zoom events and digital experiences and parties and a photography contest. And so, I mean, their level of programming is impressive. I'm envious sometimes where I'm like, wow, good job, guys. Do you want to work here? Like,
Totally.
But the passion that people like that have is really inspiring. So that's one example. And then I would say we've seen a lot of sort of community building come out through derivatives. So people who have, I mean, I'm trying to think of some of the funny names. There's like Fabitars. There's one of our really strong community members, Satoshi, has created this whole line of apparel and artwork called Fabitars, all using Rabbitar IP. I think it's everywhere, from like everything from like underwear to coffee mugs to, so that's another example. And then through the work we've been doing with Sandbox, we recently had a land sale, and the Rabbitat and other Rabbitars have been, I think, sometimes, working with other members of the Sandbox community, which has been cool, but really, on many levels, just snapping up land around Playboy's land to create their own universe and community around what we're doing across official channels. So that's
so cool.
That's the sort of overview of what's been going on with the community aspect of it.
And do you all get royalties from the like IP or the way that the community uses the IP? Do you get a little slice of that, or none at all? No. I can't remember. None. Very cool. So they can run wild.
Yep.
That's really great.
No pun intended.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Mike, what do you have?
No, I was super curious because I think you said you had about 75,000. Did I have that number right? People in the Discord? I don't remember. It's a pretty large number.
Yeah, it is. I think we're at around 56,000.
56,000. Okay.
Something like that. Yeah.
I mean, I have to imagine that that's one of the more, if not the most popular brand Discords around, like what I would call a true Web2 brand that's now into the Web3 space. And I think it would be helpful for some of the brand leaders on this who are listening to this to understand, like, what does it take to have a successful Discord? Kind of what are some of the operational pros and cons to having a successful Discord and doing it? I'm sure you've learned quite a bit about that over the course of the last year.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we dove into in a big way around the time of the Rabbitars launch. And I would say, in terms of learnings based on our experience, I think being prepared to put a lot of resourcing towards it, or if you're not going to do that, to be really clear about the purpose of the Discord from the outset to the community. So, for example, XYZ brand, this is an official an official channel hosted by us. However, this is what it looks like. This is what these channels are going to be used for. This is what our level of participation is going to be and not going to be. And just being really transparent about setting expectations so that, we've because we were so early and because we started our Discord so early and because it grew so fast, it was a risk that I'm proud of because it was a risk, right? As a big brand, It's like we're diving into this new thing and taking the chance, not knowing how it's going to go.
Right.
And there have been tons of ups and downs. And one thing I think I would do differently is actually, I don't know what I would do differently. I think I would just be prepared for mistakes to be made and to put support towards it, right? Like, don't think of it as something that you can just open up and then leave. And both from a community perspective and a security perspective, there's, I think, being really, really transparent and really informative about scams. And, there are a ton of security risks when it comes to people sharing links and like the level to which people can create fake versions of official projects is so sophisticated and fools incredibly intelligent people. So I think taking the time to check all the boxes you need to and educate yourself on how to communicate best practices to your community on that security front is super, super important.
That's great. That's, I think, going to be really helpful for people because there is this, or has been, maybe it's dying down a little bit, this sort of natural thing, like if we're going to do something Web3 or NFT based, or we have to go Discord. And I'm also curious, other channels that were social channels that were really popular, probably still are very popular for you. Do these projects kind of seep over into those as well? I mean, if you have Facebook or Instagram or Telegram or something, or do you try to maintain it within the Discord?
A combination of both. We communicate official announcements on Discord, on official announcements channels within Discord. We have a section of our Discord that's for Rabbitars, and then another section that's just for anyone who wants to join the Playboy Web3 Discord, the Playboy Discord. And the Rabbitar section often gives access to benefits that are exclusive to, and information that's exclusive to Rabbitar. So that's the differentiator there. Whereas we have a Playboy NFTs Twitter and a Playboy NFTs Instagram. Twitter is the more active of the two in terms of Web2 channels. That's where we repost, we share official announcements. Sometimes they lead to the Discord. We repost derivatives. We sort of engage with the creative work the community is doing, occasional Twitter spaces, things like that. And then when we have a really like significant or main announcement associated with any given initiative or drop, you'll see crossover on the Hero Playboy Twitter account, right?
Okay.
So, for example, when we launched our first original avatar collection with Sandbox, you would see that on our crypto channels and on our Hero channels. So it sort of depends. It's not one size fits all by any means. And I would also say that I think if you're a brand who's kind of considering strategies on this front, I would say start small and think about how you want to do it. I don't think you have to have a Discord. I think you can, but I don't think you have to. I think you have to have a line of communication to your community for sure, but that doesn't mean that it's one size fits all for any given brand or individual or project. So
I think that's great advice. We definitely feel that. I mean, depending on who your audience is, Discord may not be a good place. Like you may not need to pick or create a whole new channel to start the communications. The key is to have good communications, clear communications, and finding the right way to do it. So I know we want to jump a little bit into some future things that are going on with whatever you can share. Maybe tell us a little bit about how you're thinking of the roadmap or things we might be seeing down the line here in 2023.
Yeah, sure. So from the beginning of the Rabbitar's project, the three of us have talked a little bit about this recently on calls. The North Star of the Rabbitars has, on some level, always been some version of a meta mansion, a Playboy mansion in the metaverse. When we first started ideating on what the Rabbitars would be, it just kept coming up organically in conversations. In my head, I'm thinking, how do we reimagine the different departments of the magazine as different rooms in the meta mansion? How do we bring in like the historical and cultural figures from the past? How do we bring in, digital versions of our art collection on the walls? The wealth of content and storytelling is kind of endless. And so the idea of having a mansion in the metaverse that celebrates the coolest parts of the Playboy Mansion's legacy and the parts that make sense to celebrate was always something that we've been interested in. And it was such early days that, we want to get it right. And so we took our time sort of meeting with everyone we could, experimenting on different metaverse platforms and different gaming platforms, and ultimately ended up forging a partnership with Sandbox, which has been incredible. They're one of the leading metaverse gaming companies in the world, and have a ton of incredible partnerships with everyone from Snoop to Paris Hilton to Tony Hawk to us. And so the work we've been doing that's future focused has really largely revolved around building that meta mansion behind the scenes. So we're really in that planning phase right now, where I'm working with the great team at the Sandbox to develop the narratives, figure out what it actually is going to be. And from there, I think we'll get more into programming and experiences and quests and play to earn and things like that. Right now, it's sort of we're architecting the actual main experience. And the plan is for at least a first iteration of the meta mansion to go live in 2023 if all goes according to plan. So in the meantime, we've been doing some kind of surprise and delight moments with the Sandbox to try to keep engagement and build the community both within the Rabbitars and then the Rabbitars in conjunction with Sandbox. So in the meantime, we have a couple examples we actually had a pretty big year of firsts last year with Sandbox. So that are kind of spilling over into this year. So to celebrate the Rabbitar's first birthday, the 1-year anniversary of the public mint, we offered free Sandbox avatars to all Rabbitar holders. So Mike and anyone who owns a Rabbitar can sign into the Sandbox, connect their wallet, and they automatically have like a voxelized version of their Rabbitar that they can play in the Sandbox. So that was the main first thing. Then we released our first original avatar collection with the Sandbox a few months ago, towards the end of last year. That was inspired. It's called the Playboy Party People. And it is a collection of characters inspired by the kinds of guests you might imagine finding at a Playboy Mansion party. Then we had a 69th birthday party experience, which was awesome. Their narrative team and developers are brilliant, and it was super fun working with them to sort of brainstorm and come up with cool quests inspired by Playboy heritage. You have like our Mr. Playboy character as a bartender. You have Ian Fleming, who created James Bond, sitting with like a famous model who was in one of the Bond pictorials we did, having a cocktail, right? So that had a play to earn element. So you complete a certain number of quests. It was open for 6.9 days. And there were a certain number of quests, and if you completed all the quests, you were automatically entered into a reward pool to earn sand. And if you were owned a Rabbitar or a Playboy party person avatar, you were also entered into a pool for an additional allotment of sand. So that's one example of how, we want the Meta Mansion and the Sandbox experiences we do together to be inclusive of everyone, while at the same time always kind of keeping the Rabbitars and our OG communities at the center in terms of VIP experiences and exclusive benefits.
It's so smart. And I just love, again, like all the weaving in of storytelling and access to archives, or the intentional ways that you brought back such iconic characters from the brand. And with that in mind, as we're thinking about continuing to grow this program, how do you think about collaborations and partnerships? Do you often like bring in other brands or other figures, or kind of how does that come to play out, if at all? I mean, there's plenty to work with at Playboy, so you don't need to, but I was just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always excited about big or small partnerships with people who make sense and have similar values and vibes as Playboy. Art is a really sort of organic point of entry, in the same way that was the lens that we entered the space in. I think that will continue, hopefully, to be an ongoing source of collaboration. So, for example, we've done post Rabbitar art collaborations with artists like whIsbe. We did another one with slimesunday. Where we'll, the way the Rabbitars will fit in is they'll be on the allow list for this collaboration. So even if they aren't explicitly a Rabbitar project, the Rabbitars are considered and factored into whatever the rollout of that collaboration might be. And then I really hope that there is there's a future for sort of in-game collaboration with
I was
Sandbox.
curious about that. Yeah. So you mentioned so many cool people that are like in that universe with you, like
totally. Yeah, like it's an honor. Like like if you go to the Sandbox map, it's nuts. I mean, it's like they haven't even been doing partnerships on this level that long, and the lineup is incredible. And so one very small example is that at the 69th birthday party experience, we had a DJ called DJ Blondish, who performed at the party. She
love Blondish.
Oh, awesome. Not everyone knows. That's so cool. Who she is. So, she had her own special stage and her own special bunny costume avatar. And she's a Sandbox partner and had recently released an NFT collection that we promoted at the event. And so that's like a small example, but I definitely hope to explore more things like that, both in and out of the game.
Cool.
Very cool.
We're kind of coming to the end, but tell us a little bit about your trip to Paris and speaking at NFT Paris, and kind of maybe give us a little preview of what's going on there.
Right. Yeah. Because you mentioned that this podcast will come out, I think, right around the time that that will be happening. Yeah. So the NFT Paris team is amazing. They're, ever since NFT NYC, I think of NFT NYC, as like the grandfather or mother of all NFT conferences. And since then, as anyone who's paid attention to the conference circuit, there's an NFT conference everywhere now. Right. And I think NFT Paris is an example of one of the conferences that's really doing it right. I mean, they've showed me the renderings and like the vision for the conference and like the visuals. It's at the base of the Eiffel Tower. It's gorgeous. It's not a typical conference. I mean, it's a true like art directed experience with really cool tech activations and big players in the Web3 space. So yeah, was honored to be invited to join their lineup of speakers, and that'll be at the end of February, I think, right around the time that this is coming out.
What's your topic?
It's literally before this podcast, we're emailing with the conference organizers about the details and don't have anything confirmed that I can share yet, but it's safe to assume that it'll be involving Playboy as a brand. Kind of I won't say too much, just tune into the conference.
Tune into the conference. And for anyone who's
Love
listening,
that.
look at our social channels. We'll probably have it published by then.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I want to go. I want to see.
Yeah, I was
it.
gonna say, Fenny's on a plane already. She was.
I know. I'm like,
down at
get
her
me
computer
there.
because she was probably
You
on.
should go. You can stay in my hotel room.
Oh,
Get you a
up on
cot.
that. Yeah, I know. It's like, it's such a cool way to get in front of the community and share ideas, and really awesome to hear that you're impressed with how they're putting it together. Because I think that's the other thing we always look for, is where are people excited to mix and mingle and continue to build this space together, and what's the community behind the scenes. And so, yeah, really excited to hear more.
Am I allowed to finish by asking
Yes.
guys the same question? What I know you have some conference engagements coming up and some speaking stuff going on. Can you please tell the audience about what?
Ooh. Take it away, Mike.
No, it's okay. No, last year was great. We got a chance to speak at a lot of different conferences, NFT, London. We did something with DressX, which was really cool, Metaverse Summit. And yeah, so we'll be speaking at NFT NYC coming up in April. And we're also probably putting together a little function for folks to join and talk about different things. Are you going to be at that one? I know you've got a busy schedule as well.
It's TBD. I think so. I'm not 100% sure, but I think so.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So no, definitely starting there. And then there's kind of a few others that we're working through, but the conferences are great. So much happens off scene. Just the dinners and the breakfast and the lunches where you're able to kind of sit down and really talk through things. And I found last year to be the best, because especially London, because there were so many people I was dealing with over Zoom that we were all able to go have dinner together and hang out and have a beer. So that was fun. But maybe we'll just end with one thing. I mean, again, you've been in this, you're doing amazing, innovative things. You kind of read of brands now that are just starting, which is fine. And that's probably 98% of the brand community. What tips, things to avoid, lessons learned, observations, what can you share with them as they're starting their journey?
I would say that it sounds simple, but I think the most valuable piece of advice that has helped me and my team is enter thoughtfully. Don't think of it as unless this is your goal, right? It depends on your goal. There's no one size fits all goal. But for us, it was important for me to have it be the opposite of a stunt, the opposite of a cash grab, especially being a brand, especially being a big brand, especially being Playboy. There's so many preconceived notions of what we are and who we are as a brand. And I think taking the time, whether you're an individual or a small business or a global brand, to take the time to map out your goals before you dive in. I think that's the most sort of enduring piece of advice that's helped me.
Yeah, that's great advice. I actually hadn't thought about until you just mentioned this, but this idea of there's so many perceptions of what you are versus kind of how you're showing up now in this other world, and who might be engaging with the brand who might not have otherwise, right? Given some of the legacy pieces. And that seems like a great opportunity for you and for a lot of brands to think about, is who you are in this real world that you've been, and maybe you're a brand that's been around for 5 years or 50 years. And what are all the new ways that the people we can engage with who aren't really necessarily even our core customer? So like the idea of the mansion sounds like it's going to be super fun, in a lot of different ways for people to engage with. So Lauren, I don't know if you had anything before we signed off here.
No, per usual, I could talk about this stuff for hours. So thank you for sharing so many great insights. And I know the audience will be, really excited to hear all of your advice and kind of the journey you've been on, and obviously looking forward to all to come here in 2023. So thanks again.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor.
Awesome.
Great
Thanks.
seeing you.
Soon. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see you. Thank you for listening to this episode of Metaverse Matters by Pebble Ventures. If you enjoyed the content, please do subscribe and rate the show. You could also connect with us on LinkedIn at pebbleventures.com or directly at mike@pebbleventures.com. If you're a brand exploring the space, or you're already testing and are looking to develop next level strategies, please do reach out. We'd welcome an introductory conversation to learn more about your goals, where you are in the process, and share our thoughts about your business. Have a great day.